The story begins on a strange late night when a clump of gray lint drifts into an apartment room with the wind. Blown by a gentle breeze, the lint rolls around the room and finally settles under the bed, transforming into a dust bunny doll. On the bed, a girl named Aurora is startled awake from her sleep by a sudden shaking. Hearing her screams, her adoptive parents rush to the bedroom immediately. Aurora tells them there is a monster under the bed, but her adoptive mother finds nothing after checking. The parents think she just had a nightmare, but Aurora insists there is really something down there. And this isn't the first time she has encountered such weird events. In the past few months, Aurora has constantly seen things under the bed. Whenever those things appear, the floor begins to shake, and anyone moving on the floor will be swallowed by the monster. At first, her adoptive parents thought Aurora had sensitive hearing and that the old house's floor had cockroaches or bugs, so they specifically moved her to this apartment. But only a few days after the family moved in, Aurora says she hears the movements again. This makes the adoptive parents quite anxious. Could Aurora have some kind of special illness? Looking at her parents who don't believe her, Aurora feels very sad. She hugs her blanket and goes to sleep on the fire escape outside the window. However, just as Aurora looks back, she sees that dust bunny again. The eerie sight terrifies her, and she quickly hides behind the balcony. At that moment, a firefly flies through the air, and her gaze is drawn to it. But as she looks down, Aurora accidentally notices her neighbor from 5B walking through the alleyway below. She always feels this neighbor is a bit strange. Initially, Aurora doesn't think much of it, assuming 5B is just returning from work. But the next night, she sees him leaving the apartment again. Curious, Aurora follows the stairs down and quietly tails 5B to see what he does at night. Passing through an alley, a brightly lit street appears nearby with people performing a dragon dance. It's very lively. Moving through the crowd, Aurora sees 5B enter a small alley, and the dragon dance troupe follows him in. Before Aurora can catch up, the sound of firecrackers rings out in the alley. She looks back and discovers that 5B is actually fighting the dragon dancers. After just a few exchanges, the ground is covered with bodies. Watching the brutal 5B, Aurora shows an excited expression. After finishing everyone off, 5B starts to head back, and Aurora quietly follows behind him all the way to the apartment. Seeing 5B go inside, Aurora thinks she wasn't spotted, but as she returns home, she doesn't notice that 5B has been watching her from his doorway. Finding Aurora covered in mud, her parents tell her to take a bath and clean up, but while bathing she sees the dust bunny again. It crawls into the floor and vanishes. This eerie scene makes Aurora unable to sleep all night. Yet, this isn't the scariest part. Not long after she lies down, the floor bulges again, and the monster crawls out from the floorboards. Hearing the commotion in the room, Aurora only dares to hide under her blanket, shivering. Without realizing it, she falls into a daze and sleeps. When she opens her eyes again, it's already the next day. She carefully lifts the blanket, making sure the sun is out before daring to get out of bed. Because she's afraid of the monster in the floor, Aurora doesn't dare walk on the ground. She can only ride a small toy cow with wheels, carefully sliding to her adoptive parents' bedroom door. But she shouts for a long time without any response from the room. Feeling strange, Aurora pushes the door open and sees a horrifying scene. Her adoptive parents' room is a complete mess, with clothes scattered everywhere and destroyed furniture. It turns out the screams Aurora heard last night were actually the monster attacking her parents. And this isn't the first time the monster has eaten Aurora's adoptive parents. As early as a few months ago, Aurora had 2 records of being adopted, and both sets of parents were brutally eliminated by the monster. She had told her experiences to the welfare agency staff, but they thought Aurora was just being naughty and that her parents had abandoned her. Looking at the empty room, Aurora completely panics. She wants to leave, but has nowhere to go. Helpless, she can only return to her bedroom in disappointment. However, as she is taking off her shoes, one accidentally falls to the floor. She's about to pick it up, but looks back to see movement in the floorboards. Watching her blanket being swallowed, she wants to head to the balcony, but the monster in the floor realizes her plan and actually drags the bed over. Before Aurora can react, her small bed is lifted up. The monster shakes the bed trying to get Aurora off, but luckily she is clever and grips the bedpost tightly. After a long time, the monster finally gives up its plan and crawls back into the floor. Watching the monster vanish, Aurora's heart finally settles. But as long as she is alive, the monster will never leave. After much thought, Aurora thinks of her neighbor. Early the next morning, Aurora goes to a nearby church. While the nuns are praying for donations, she secretly steals the donation money. Upon returning to the apartment, Aurora immediately puts the money from the church into an envelope and places it in 5B's mailbox. Returning home, 5B quickly finds the letter. Aurora wants to hire 5B to help her get rid of the monster, but looking at Aurora's letter, 5B thinks it's a prank. While he is puzzled, there is a knock at the door. Learning the letter was sent by Aurora, 5B looks helpless, but he doesn't drive her away. Instead, he asks her why she wants to hire him. It turns out that earlier that day, Aurora was on the rooftop and witnessed 5B fighting, mistakenly believing he had killed a dragon. Aurora assumed 5B was an exorcist like on TV, specializing in hunting monsters, so she wanted to hire him to remove the presence in the floor. However, hearing Aurora's explanation, 5B becomes alert. He doesn't believe in monsters. Instead, he suspects Aurora might be part of a trap set for him. It turns out 5B is a professional hitman who has offended many people on the streets and has been dodging pursuers lately. 5B pretends to agree and goes with Aurora to her apartment. Initially, 5B thinks assassins are hiding in the house, so he constantly watches his surroundings. But upon arriving at Aurora's home, 5B doesn't find a single assassin. While he is wondering, Aurora takes him to her adoptive parents' bedroom. Seeing the marks on the walls, 5B is stunned for a moment, but he still doesn't believe there are monsters in this world. He thinks Aurora is suffering from delusions. Learning that Aurora's adoptive parents were all eaten by the monster, 5B considers a possibility. He suspects the parents abandoned Aurora and made up a lie about a monster. He doesn't take the job and returns all of Aurora's money, but he isn't heartless. He takes the files of Aurora's parents to his contact, Laverne, wanting her to check their identities. Back home, 5B sits by the window eating apple peels. Halfway through, he suddenly hears the elevator start. Alert, 5B goes to Aurora's apartment and tells her to hide and not make a sound. Before Aurora can speak, 5B climbs onto the hallway wall. Just as he hides, the apartment door is opened. It turns out the assassin's clothes have the same pattern as the wallpaper, which is why 5B couldn't see the person. He and the assassin start a fight in the hallway. Although 5B is brutal, the assassin is clearly no pushover either. While 5B is fighting the assassin, a woman also comes to Aurora's room and fires several shots at Aurora's bed. but when she flips the blanket, she finds only a pillow inside. While she is confused, the wardrobe nearby makes a noise. She goes to check and finds Aurora hiding in the wardrobe, shivering. She then raises her weapon to finish Aurora off. Hearing the gunshot, 5B thinks something happened to Aurora. But when he finishes the assassin and reaches the room, he finds Aurora safely hiding in the wardrobe. He thinks the assassin showed mercy, but Aurora tells him the woman was eaten by the monster in the floor. Hearing Aurora mention the monster again, 5B still doesn't believe it. Although he doesn't know why the assassin suddenly retreated, now is not the time to overthink it. 5B drags the man's body to the bathroom, preparing to clean up. But just as he's about to start, Aurora appears at the door. She tells 5B not to waste effort on the body. Just place the man on the bedroom floor, and the monster will come out to eat him. Looking at the innocent Aurora, 5B feels helpless. He locks the door and begins processing the body. In the middle of his work, the doorbell suddenly rings. 5B comes to the door, and a woman calling herself Brenda pays a visit, claiming to be a social worker from the welfare agency. It turns out the welfare agency needs to do regular follow-ups to check on foster families, but 5B is busy with a body and has no time for her, so he closes the door on the pretext of being sick. However, 5B doesn't know that this Brenda is not a social worker at all. Early the next morning, 5B takes 2 suitcases to Laverne. He wants her help to handle the bodies and check where Aurora's parents went. However, Laverne tells 5B that Aurora's parents were never assassins at all. They were just an ordinary couple, but they mysteriously disappeared a few days ago. Laverne assumes 5B accidentally took them out, which is why he cares so much about Aurora. Before Laverne can finish, Aurora walks over from nearby. Seeing that Aurora is actually still alive, Laverne is shocked. Although she doesn't know why 5B showed mercy, she warns him to be careful. Another group has targeted him, and he must leave the city immediately. Despite knowing he is in danger, 5B doesn't abandon Aurora. He takes her to a Chinese restaurant and orders some dumplings. While sitting there, 5B notices a man staring at him. With his years of experience, 5B recognizes the man as an assassin immediately. The man thinks Aurora is 5B's daughter, and to avoid scaring the child, he approaches and invites 5B outside to talk. But 5B just focuses on eating and ignores him. The man is angry but doesn't strike directly, but he followed 5B all the way. Watching the man behind them, Aurora dares not speak and just follows 5B. As they return, Brenda happens to visit again. 5B thinks Brenda is really a social worker and tells her what Aurora experienced. Although 5B still doubts the monster story, he has to consider it since 3 families faced the same thing. 5B wants Brenda to take Aurora away first because he has other troubles to handle. Looking at the crowd downstairs, Brenda also senses something is wrong. However, she doesn't leave. Instead, she opens her walkie-talkie and contacts colleagues waiting downstairs. It turns out Brenda is actually an FBI agent. They received reports that Aurora's previous 2 sets of adoptive parents vanished mysteriously, so they came to investigate. Learning Brenda's identity, 5B is stunned. Just then, the doorbell rings again. 5B thinks the man from earlier is making a move. He tells Aurora to hide and not come out no matter what. But when he reaches the door, he discovers that the visitor is actually Laverne. Laverne heard news that 5B hadn't left, guessed he was worried about Aurora, and came to persuade him. That man is no ordinary person. He allegedly held 2 revolvers and fought from New Delhi West Road all the way to New York North Road for 3 days and nights without blinking. Yet, facing Laverne's warning, 5B still has no plan to leave, firmly believing he can handle all problems. Seeing 5B's determination, Laverne stops trying to persuade him. After Laverne leaves, Brenda finds 5B again. Initially, Brenda also thought Aurora was being naughty, but as the investigation deepened, she found Aurora wasn't lying. There really is a monster in her room. Hearing Brenda, 5B finds it hard to accept for a moment. Brenda wants 5B to find a way to lure the monster out and then eliminate it. But 5B says if there were a monster, he would have noticed it while being at home last night. Before he can finish, a strange noise comes from Aurora's room. 5B thinks the monster is appearing and cautiously enters the room. Seeing 5B, Aurora warns him not to step on the floor, but he doesn't believe it and walks straight to the balcony. Confirming there are no assassins outside, he turns around. However, 5B doesn't notice that as he turns, a floorboard suddenly flips up. As he reaches the door, he hears a noise outside and tries to pull Brenda, but a bullet hits her. Seeing the assassins at the door, 5B draws his weapon and takes out those trying to rush in. Taking the chance, 5B drags Brenda to hide in the bathroom. One assassin tries to pursue, but two people suddenly appear behind him. Seeing the two assassins in the hallway, they assume they are 5B's helpers. In the panic, he kicks open a wooden door and hides in the apartment hallway. Seeing the assassin enter, 5B wants to sneak and attack, but finds he ran out of bullets. 5B comes to Brenda's side, wanting to see if she is carrying any weapons. Just as he searches, a high heel presses against his forehead. It turns out Brenda wore a bulletproof vest and was just knocked out by the impact. Then, he saw a bizarre sight on the floor. Watching the floor move rhythmically, 5B is completely stunned. He remembers Aurora's warning. It turns out the so-called monster is real. Reacting, 5B quickly jumps onto the dressing table and tells Brenda to get off the floor. Brenda also notices the moving floor and jumps onto the toilet. Outside, the assassins are searching for 5B. As they reach the bathroom door, a dark shadow appears in the hallway. A man thinks it's 5B and fires a shot, but when the bullet flies over, everyone is stunned. Seeing the terrifying monster, the assassins open fire with everything, but the monster doesn't fear bullets and lunges at them. Hearing the screams in the hallway, 5B and Brenda in the bathroom are terrified. 5B opens a drawer to see if there's anything useful as a weapon, but there are only toiletries. After searching, he only finds a bottle of strange medicine. Just as 5B is wondering what this vial of medicine is for, the monster's roar sounds out again from outside. 5B instinctively climbs onto the sink, then the bathroom door is pushed open, and an assassin flies in. The assassin tries to get up but is finished off by 5B with an electric toothbrush. Outside the apartment, Brenda's colleagues hear gunshots and think she's in a firefight, so they cautiously prepare to investigate. In the hallway, the assassins realize the monster can't leave the floor and hide on the wall edges, not daring to move. One assassin sees a shotgun on the ground and bends to pick it up, but spikes suddenly appear from the floor. Watching their comrade being swallowed in one bite, the other assassins are terrified. As the monster moves toward them, the bathroom door opens, and the assassin who flew in earlier is thrown out by 5B. Seeing prey, the monster rushes to the bathroom. In an instant, a giant mouth appears on the ground and swallows the man on the floor. Watching this, 5B quietly closes the door, but before he can breathe, Brenda's two colleagues rush in. Seeing the assassins standing on the wall edges, they force everyone to drop their weapons. Strangely, the monster doesn't appear. The assassins are handcuffed. Brenda thinks the monster is full. Seeing it hasn't appeared, she prepares to go to the car downstairs for backup. But as she reaches the door, she sees a tentacle on the ground that slams the door shut. Before Brenda can react, the monster appears again. After a burst of gunshots, the apartment falls into deathly silence. 5B carefully looks out, and seeing the monster is gone, he shouts for Aurora. Hearing the shout, Aurora lifts her blanket. Seeing she is okay, 5B's heart finally settles. He jumps onto the wooden cow to reach Aurora, but just as he reaches the door, the monster appears again. Watching 5B being swallowed in one bite, Aurora is stunned and can only hide back in the bed's secret compartment. After waiting through the night in agony, it's finally light. Aurora carefully opens the barrier and watches the surroundings. She hears a strange thumping from the floor. Suddenly, an arm bursts out from the floorboards. It turns out to be 5B climbing out of the floor. He poured the medicine he found in the bathroom into the monster, and the monster spat him out. Just as they think they've escaped, the apartment door opens, and Laverne appears. 5B wants to warn her, but Laverne doesn't know about the monster. As soon as she walks in, the monster appears again. 5B doesn't dare stay. He takes Aurora to try and leave through the balcony, but the monster saw through their plan and flipped Aurora's bed, trapping 5B underneath. Luckily, the iron railings of the bed block the monster so it can't bite 5B. The frustrated monster opens its giant mouth, preparing to swallow the whole bed. Seeing the monster charging up, 5B takes the chance and leaps onto the windowsill, but the monster still won't let him go. As the monster lunges, Aurora stands in front of it. Seeing Aurora, the monster not only stops its attack but actually starts jumping in front of her. It turns out the monster never intended to hurt Aurora. It just wanted to play with her. As for the others who were eaten, the monster thought they were trying to harm Aurora, so it attacked them. At the end of the story, 5B adopts Aurora. The above is all the content of the latest thriller Dust Bunny. Well, that's all for today. See you next time.